Explosion Network's Fast and Furious podcast, and we don't have friends, we have family. Each week in the lead up to Fast and Furious 9, we shall be cracking a Corona to discuss the films, characters, music, and more of the Fast saga. My name is Dylan Blight. Joining me, Ashley Hobley.
Hey Dylan, excited to be here, because pockets ain't empty, cuz.
And Kieran Marchant.
Good to be here, because we hungry.
We hungry.
We hungry.
Get ready for picking everyone's favourite quotes later in the show, I guess. So this week's episode, we are talking about Too Fast, Too Furious, released in 2013, directed by John Singleton, written by Michael Brandt, who did the story and screenplay, Derek Haas, who did the story and screenplay, and it was based on the guy Scott Thompson characters, of course. And he did the story for this one. This is the last one he was involved in. He did the original screenplay for the first one and the story, and this one he just did the story for. And then every Fast after this, he's just credited for the characters, obviously. The main cast of this film: Paul Walker, Tyrese Gibson, Eva Mendes, Cole Hauser, Ludacris, Chris Bridges, Thom Barry, and Devon Aoki. The synopsis of the film is former cop Brian O'Connor is called upon to bust a dangerous criminal, and he recruits the help of a former childhood friend and a street racer who has a chance to redeem himself. But before we get into talking about that movie, we'll take a hot second to go off the side of the racetrack here and talk about the turbocharged prelude for Too Fast, Too Furious. In case you haven't seen this before, this is I think it's like 6 to 9 minutes or something like that. I should have wrote it down, but it's not really that important.
It's like 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's not very long. It's basically a short film. It has no dialogue. The entire thing is just showing Brian traveling, basically what he does after the first Fast and Furious and how he ends up in Miami to be where we are when Too Fast, Too Furious picks up, and that's all it is. It's just like tying together stuff so it explains what happens. It's not at all important to watch Too Fast, Too Furious, but as it stands as like a 6-minute thing, I've watched it every time I've actually rewatched this movie because I just, like, it's on the DVD, it's on the Blu-ray, what have you. I've had it on every copy of this movie I've managed to own, so I've always just chucked it on because it is short to get me like amped before the movie starts before we go, because it is short. So obviously I don't mind it. Kieran, do you see yourself rewatching that?
It was maybe not, just because it was so bizarre, because it felt like it was caught between... They almost put a lot of effort into some of the shots of it, and then other ones I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. Like, I guess I get it, it's 2002, 2003, but like the shots of like him, like, but over the top of the map showing where he's going just looked really bad in stages, but at the same time...
Eurotrip.
Yeah, at the same time, like, some of the bits, like the cops breaking into his house or him racing certain people, I was like, holy fuck, like, you actually had to put some kind of organizational effort into making this happen. This wasn't just, we've got this lying around here and there, we could do shots like this. No, it's they've gone out of their way to do this. So, credit to them, sure, do it. I don't think it's like a must-have to watch Too Fast, Too Furious. It's alright. No.
Ash?
Yeah, it's okay. I think the weirdest thing is Minka Kelly's in it. Like, she's in a bunch of like bigger stuff, and she's just there randomly. Is never seen ever again, even though she helps a fugitive across the country.
She knows there's a fugitive.
Yeah,
because he sat on a newspaper for however long they drove, and he never once moved it. And then he saw it as he was getting.
They run into each other like 3 times.
Yep. He just abandons a car that's, perfectly good car. I did appreciate him...
Well, it's hot. The car was hot.
I did appreciate him building the skyline. That was the only bit that I was like, you know what? Okay. It's a small tip.
How do you do that?
He's a smart guy.
Undocumented worker, I guess, right?
I guess he's stealing. I don't know. He's a criminal, like.
Yeah. He's got money. He's got a heap of money on him.
Keep your eyes on the road, cowboy.
Are you nervous? He did the stare and drive on you, didn't he? He got that from
So
me.
jumping into Too Fast, Too Furious, the movie that I would say most people consider to be the worst one, my overall thoughts are as such. The opening is still amazing, even after all these years. The CGI in some moments where they have like the big nos shots and whatever else isn't great, but overall it's just the tone, the music, just everyone like back talking like, you ain't gonna take me, bro, you ain't gonna overtake me. Like, it's just like, this is literally, this scene, the opening of this movie is what me and another friend, when I was in like grade 6 or whatever when it came out, we would just play in the playground the opening of this movie. Like, we'll just be like, you ain't gonna take me, bro, you ain't gonna take me, bro. Like, I'm fucking like 10, 11, whatever, and I would just be saying these lines back and forth with a friend who loved this movie at the time. So yeah, it's hard for me to fault the opening, because
I hope neither one of you yelled "smack that ass" at all at that point.
no, I don't know if we would have understand what Smack That Ass was,
Yeah.
what it was about. The other thing interesting, of course, watching this one that stands out is it's the only movie without Vin Diesel in it at all. And you may be like, well, he's not Tokyo Drift. He has a cameo. So, like, he's at least in it for a hot second. It's the only one without him. And I found, like, this interesting thing because I was like, wonder why he never did it. So I just, like, Googled and straight away I found my answer, which was he said in an interview that Universal Studios didn't take a Francis Ford Coppola approach to it, which I love that he's talking about the Fast and Furious saga all the way back in 2003, 2002, whenever they're talking about this movie. I love back then he's talking about it like he does today, which is that, like, he takes these movies serious
Seriously.
as fuck, you know, like, which
What
is
does that
funny.
even mean?
It's a style
Francis
of
Ford
acting.
Coppola, you know, like, he's like, they're not taking it serious. They're not treating it like a Coppola movie. They're not doing Godfather Part 2, 3, you know.
Yeah, because
That's
they
what
got
I
more
think he
serious
means.
as they went along.
They want more. He wants Fast and Furious to be the Godfather.
Yep, he's all about it.
I
And then
mean-
apparently the only reason he did the cameo in Tokyo Drift is because he wanted to do another Reddick movie or something, so he did it as a favor.
Yeah, that was like the trade-off. Yeah.
Yeah.
It says they approached it like they did sequels in the 80s and 90s when they would drum up a new story, unrelated for the most part, and slap the same name on it. Which, in all fairness, is true. Like, Too Fast, Too Furious, as much as, like, obviously Tyrese eventually ties back into it, and like Tej and all these characters come back, it is the movie that feels the most like, let's just have a plot, like, continue the franchise, obviously. I enjoy it though. I would, not to skip ahead, I can easily say now, like, my rankings is fine. We're only 2 movies in. Like, this one, it's Fast and Furious currently, and then Too Fast, Too Furious is below that, for how ranking these movies goes. I still find it fun though. Tyrese kind of annoys me a little bit. I guess that's just supposed to be the character though. And also it's interesting rewatching this one because I haven't rewatched it for several years, and obviously his character falls away from being a bit more of a hard ass as the franchise continues and to becoming just more of a joke in a
Comedic
lot
relief.
of ways.
Yep.
Yeah, comedic relief. So
What?
that's like quite interesting to watch this one, because I feel like in this one he's a bit more of a supposed to be this badass guy or whatever. And then also similarly, I think it's funny watching this one, obviously having the most recent one I've seen Brian show up in, which was Fast and Furious 7, obviously, and 5 and 6 and whatever else. Like, I feel like this movie's like him at his utmost. Yeah, bro, you want tape? You hate cars? Like, you know, like more like street version of him, like, and it kind of gets toned down for future films or whatever else. But overall, I enjoyed watching it. I mean, I don't hate any of these movies, but it's not a great movie. It's just it's got its moments. Kieran, how do you feel about it?
I think I have a nostalgic
That's what I
love
have,
for
I
this
think,
movie
yeah.
because I think this is the first Fast and Furious movie I ever saw. I don't think I saw the
Really?
first one. I think I saw Too Fast, Too Furious first. And like you, I have a very special... I didn't reenact it, but I have a very special place for the opening scene.
Who did react to it though? Just me.
Just you. I think the skyline in that opening scene is probably one of my favorite cars in...
Yeah, I recreated it and
series.
everything. And hold on, I got to steal your fucking moment here because I just remembered something so funny. It's so relevant to this. I'll never get to bring it up. I recreated in Forza Horizon 4 when that came out. 2000? No, it wasn't last year. It was the year before, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I recreated the thing in that to best of my ability on the Skyline model that they had in the game, which isn't the correct one. But I'm like, I don't care. Yeah, I'm like, I don't care though. Like, it's still like the same sort of car. It still looks similar enough. I fucking spent like an hour or whatever, like getting all the decals right and all this other thing. I'm like, because I had like the picture open of the Skyline on my phone, and I just like copped across. At the end of the day, I'm like, I did a pretty good job at like creating this fucking skin, and it got thousands and thousands and thousands of downloads because obviously I created this when I had a review code for the game ahead of time. And then still to this day, I'll get messages from people on Xbox Live who go off at me and tell me I'm a fucking idiot because it's not the right car and all this stuff. And I'm like, what takes you? Like, I understand, obviously, I guess you're a Fast and Furious super fan that you love this car. I'm like, it's a great car. I love it in the movie too. But why are you messaging me several paragraphs about how much of an idiot I am for getting this wrong? But yeah, so whenever I can, I will recreate any sort of Skyline into his version from this film, yeah.
This movie, and I think it's interesting that where it lines up in the world, I get the very same feeling from this movie as Bad Boys. Like, I get the very same kind of style of story and narrative, what little narrative there really is in this movie. You know, the bad guy, the villain, he hires some of like the best thugs in the world. They're everywhere. I don't think there's, you know, as proactive thugs in any other movie series. But
no, they're on it. They don't sleep.
They don't sleep. They just rock up everywhere. They're like, man, we're just gonna rock up randomly and give you hell. And I really enjoy it. I really like the cars. I will say, greatest story arc in the history of movie is Tej, coming from this movie where he is the wheelin' dealin' organizer of everything in Miami, and all the way through to the later movies where he's like a genius, where he's organizing everything and hooking things up, and you're like, man, this is what a life you've had, Tej.
To be fair, there's nothing in this movie that says he can't have been a computer wizard.
There isn't.
There's nothing to like counter.
Maybe he is just lazy and lets other people do the work for him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's lazy. I think he's smart enough to make other people do his work. But no, I really like this movie. Yeah. But also, where I say the Skyline's my favorite car in the series, I think the car Roman has in this movie is my least favorite car in the whole
the convertible
franchise. Yeah. I'm like, it looks meh.
Yeah, I agree. Ash, how do you feel about this movie?
I also am very nostalgic for this movie.
Whoa!
Yeah, I remember seeing
surprising
it in theaters, having a good time. The opening scene is really cool. Crazy that he decides to lift the bridge. That seems like something you should discuss with them beforehand. But yeah, it's a good time. Everything you guys said. A bunch of cool scenes within the movie. Obviously, that rat scene, I think, gave me like nightmares, and I'm not keen on vermin ever again.
When I watched that for the first time, I think it was probably one of the darkest, most violent things I'd actually seen as a kid at the time.
It's like messed up. How do you think of that? How do you go, you know what? I'm not going to beat him with like a crowbar, take out his knees. No, I'm going to stick a rat, and then I'm going to put a blowtorch to the rat and let it eat its way through.
True villain.
True rat fan. But yeah.
Messed up villain.
I appreciate that this film sets up that it's not only set before the rest of the Fast and Furious franchise, it's also set before the first, before Speed Racer, because they use the exact same effects throughout the entire film. All the cars and everything. It looks incredibly like Speed Racer. So I appreciate it for that as well.
I don't think I've ever watched the CG closer before, as closely as I did this movie, especially like especially in the first scene where it's like watching the surrounding rather than just watching them as they're talking or doing whatever. It's like, oh boy, that didn't look good in 2002, let alone in 2020.
It's funny because these days movies get more and more special effects in it, but as crazy as the stunts actually get further in the Fast and Furious franchise, they actually start using less CGI.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a funny thing to think about.
That's because it gets more realistic as they go along. It's crazy.
No, that's my point. They get more unrealistic, but use less CGI. They use more CGI in these fucking races here.
No, it's unrealistic that the camera would move in that kind of all those different ways. Whereas it's more realistic in the future, the way the camera is moving.
That's fair. That's a fair point. I agree with you. Somebody's been watching that Corridor Crew.
Yeah.
Shout out. Yeah. So overall, I'm surprised that we all like this. I was for some reason thought Ash was going to come in with a be the usual internet fan, because everyone on the internet usually hates this one, So
when was the last time we had an argument with Ash about something? I don't know.
Yeah, that's so random. I don't know why you come to that conclusion. No, it's so weird.
Well, usually I'll agree.
It's kind of weird. They have the destruction derby at the start, and he never. I guess it never comes up again. Did he do?
I think we might go get a scene of that in 9.
That would be cool. That's true.
Yeah, I think I saw I swear in a glimpse in the trailer I saw something that looked like a destruction derby, and I'm like, maybe they're going to get Tyrese, and he's actually doing maybe he's brought the derby or something. I don't know.
Maybe
could be like a callback.
Nah, man, he's not going back to Barstow.
That's true.
Well, yeah. Maybe Vin Diesel, after the whole Rock thing, purposely is giving Tyrese more screen time to fuck with the Rock. So I had potential comebacks for either 9 or 10 characters in this movie that haven't come back yet, really. So either Mendes's Monica Fuentes, I think is how you say it.
Yeah.
So she has an after credits cameo coming up in one of the films we'll talk about soon. But other than it was uncredited as well, so she's not even an IMDb if you look.
Well, it says she's uncredited.
It says it is, but uncredited, I guess. But she hasn't come back fully. I would say that they could have her back in a quick 5-minute sort of proper cameo role, but I wouldn't see her come back properly.
It's kind of weird now that Paul Walker isn't around. I think if Brian and Paul were still, if that character was still involved, it would make sense for her to come back, and then Mia to be like, who's this floozy, and whatever. But
all they ever do in this whole movie is kiss.
Yeah, but there's a lot of
sexual tension.
There's some
palpable.
Yeah,
there is, but I think that car scene where she's looking at her the entire time.
Yeah.
It just
tense.
I will say,
and dangerous, very dangerous.
Yeah, well, a lot
if you got those skills, how didn't you see the truck coming in the first film?
Him only kissing her in the whole movie, I think, helps the fourth one when he gets back with Mia, because in all these movies you never actually see him get properly with any other girl, so it's oh, he must really love her, they give you that impression, but for all we know he's off fucking having it with other girls.
His pockets aren't empty, cuz.
Yeah, that's that's damn right. So yeah, I'd put her at a low. Another interesting one that hasn't come back is Suki.
Suki, yeah, I did think that. I was when I'm watching, I'm like, when is Suki coming back? When is she coming back as Tej's love interest? Because those two, they had it going on.
Well, no, because he's with what's-her-face now, so...
Yeah, true.
He's loving... What's her name?
Natalie Emanuel?
Yeah, Natty Emanuel. I can't remember the character name either, so...
Yeah.
Jesus.
Some weird thing.
IMDb, help me out. Oh my god. Of course it doesn't come up.
Fast and Furious
7
expert.
called? Furious 7 is the correct name of the movie. They call them different things, so if you type in the wrong one... Okay, yeah, Fast and
I will
Furious
say
7.
the naming convention of Fast and Furious movies is quite annoying as we get later in this series.
They all went down from hill, let's be honest. They all went down
Ramsey. Fuck, yeah, that's it. Ramsey. Yeah. Secret Agent Ramsey. Yes, I would like to see her come back and do a cameo, simply because we haven't seen her yet, and we've got 2 movies left until they supposedly end it, obviously. So I'm like, come on, you've only got a couple other characters that haven't had a comeback cameo in at least one thing.
Do they though? 2 movies? Hey? 9 and 10? Yeah, I guess.
They're doing 10, that's how many they've announced. And then they're continuing the spin-offs, like Hobbs and Shaw 10 and whatever else, so... the Fast and Furious brand will continue, the main trilogy. It's like Rise of Skywalker, the end of that.
I think you've just doomed Fast and Furious for yourself there, buddy.
And then we had Cole Hauser as the villain, of course, Carter Verone, who at the end of the movie, as jokingly pointed out before, says he would come get revenge for Tyrese. And that was supposed to be a couple of years after this, so I think he would be out. Like
he is he is plotting how to get his revenge on Tyrese.
Against Tyrese, yeah.
I'd love for him to be a minor villain.
No,
like
listen.
a minor villain in one of these movies.
Spin-off, Tyrese and Ludacris go do this spin-off movie. Suki comes back. He's getting chased down by the bad guy. And they have to
He's
use
got too
ejector
much
seats
money
again.
now. He's ejecto-ceto, cuz.
Well, you know how every movie kind of starts with like a prologue scene? Is like the way I like to think of them. Nearly every movie has like this opening scene. Even 8 just had a race that wasn't connected to anything else, obviously. So I'm like, if they wanted to do it as like a throwback cameo, and you could tie this in, like you could have 9 literally start with Carter Verone after like in an action scene trying to fucking kill Roman, and then someone comes in and saves him, and that's like a way to open the movie or something, you know? Title goes
Maybe.
Maybe.
after credits scene.
Maybe. Yeah, turns out he's the big bad. He's been pulling the strings all along. He was the one who was actually behind Hard's death. He was the one who freaked
He was the one who framed Roger Rabbit.
He was the one who stuck Charlize Theron's character on them. He runs Nobody. It's Mr. Nobody's company. It's all been a major plot. He was behind it all. Crazy.
It's been all connected.
All
to
connected.
Too Fast, Too Furious at the time.
He was the one who killed Dom's father. It's crazy.
Fucking hell.
It's all connected. Justice comes. So yeah, for the family for this movie, of course, Roman Pearce is the big loudmouth badass totem character that's introduced in this movie. How do we feel about Roman in general? Jokes aside, but then we can get to jokes. Do you like him? Do you not like him? Do you like him in this and then dislike him in the future movies? Or do you think you like dislike him more in this and like him more the way he's like a sidekick in the future ones? What's the preference?
I feel like the next couple of films that we've seen color this performance now, where he's a bit more, his IQ is smaller, and there's a bit more comic relief. But he has a serious beef with Brian. Not really. Brian had nothing to do with his incarceration,
Not at all.
but he's got like a chip on his shoulder. He's got like character motivations and that kind of stuff. But I mean, he's perfectly fine. He drives good. He says funny lines.
He drives good. He drives cars.
He is a perfectly adequate sidekick.
Yeah. Kieran?
I feel like later in the series they really water him down a little bit, because even though, if you look at my quote list that I wrote down while watching this, a lot of the quotes and the one-liners that I wrote on this is his quotes, his Roman quotes, and I kind of feel later in the movies that's all that he became, is these funny
Quotes?
one-liners and quotes. It wasn't like he wasn't a substantial character in any way. I really like him by the end of this movie. I think it would be interesting to know about where he goes after this point. Like, what is the gap, the bridge between when we meet him again later in the movies?
I honestly can't remember if they mentioned. That's why I'm kind of looking forward to watching 5.
I don't
I
think
can't
they
remember
do.
how they bring him back.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him again. But then also, it's just, he kind of just loses substance as a character, where I believe even his connection to Brian seems to kind of dwindle a little bit in the later movies. Like, there isn't that special bond he has with Brian later. It just seems to be his bond with that whole family. Not anything too special about Brian anymore. Because he kind of gets eclipsed by Brian's relationship with Dom.
Yeah, well, they just pair everyone off eventually. It's like Brian, Dom, Tej, Roman, Han, Giselle. I
Giselle,
guess. Yeah. Like, he's the cool cat that gets the one that's allowed to spend a lot of time with his love interest, I guess. So yeah, any other last thoughts on the movies? This movie before we move on to like favorite line in the mix and these sorts of things. The only thing I want to call out is I still love watching that final scene where all the cars come out.
Yeah,
like
still
because that's
ending.
obviously practical.
Yeah.
That's obviously practical, and it's just really cool to see that many cars going on and whatever else. And in general, that's like a cool movie trick. I remember the first time watching it being like, this is,
Damn.
you know, I'm a young kid and it's like, this is cool. Look how smart they are. And then when it finally reveals they're in the other cars, you're like, oh, wow, guys, so cool.
And
Yeah,
even
so
just the minor things of seeing cars that you recognize from the opening scene, like just being like, oh, cool, they're all involved and they've got their cars in this. And
There's Suki's car
yeah,
and
yeah.
all these other
Yeah.
people. Yeah. The races from the start and stuff. Yeah. Ash, you have any other things you want to bring up for this one?
They drove a car on a boat
They,
onto a boat.
This is where it starts
set
getting
the bar
wacky.
very
This
high.
is-
but my favorite thing about mentioning that is that everyone's like, oh man, these movies went to shit unrealistic at like number 5 or something. Everyone like calls number 5 as the one where they start going unrealistic or whatever. And I was like, they drove a fucking car like onto a boat in the second one.
Yeah.
They went, but yeah, I mean, it's totally realistic.
Here's a good question.
Definitely.
Whatever happened to Agent Bilkins? You know, he was a dude looking out for Brian. Never see him again.
Never
Bring
seen
him
again.
back.
I mean, they could. Maybe he goes on to bigger and better things. But also, it's funny how they got him back for this one and not I can't remember the actor's name, but from the first one, he's actual like the one he spends most of the
But
time
that's
talking
because
to.
but that's because he isn't working for the police anymore. He's working for the FBI. The guy he's talking to, the main guy is his like,
I
police
guess,
chief,
yeah.
where this is the FBI and Bilkins is part of the FBI.
They should have got him back for a cameo. Be like, Brian, look, I'm here to talk you into it. Like, I'm here to talk you into doing this FBI mission thing. Yeah. Kieran, any other things you want to call out from this one?
I also want somebody that should come back because they've shown in the trailers that they're free to bring back these kind of smaller characters. Is the mechanic, and I can't remember his name. Jimmy, thank you. I really like Jimmy. I'm like, man, when he takes a look at the cars for the first time, when Brian and Roma bring it back, and he's like describing just how wide these cars are, you're like, I like you. You're pretty great. Like, and they put little poker scene and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
he needs to take Tej's money.
Yeah, exactly. He probably did take his garage though.
Yeah.
That's probably why Tej is so
Yeah,
free
that's
to
why,
do everything
that's
else
why
now.
he's going everywhere else. Like, he doesn't own it anymore. Spin-off, man. Come back.
This Tej spin-off is sounding more and more like a viable plan, you know?
Yeah. You know, and then how it ends is The Rock shows up and saves him. Saves Tyrese from certain death.
So I was
There you
just
go. It's
looking
all
up,
good,
and
fam.
I found out some interesting thing because he's on the soundtrack for this as well because his MC Jin is his rapper name.
Cool.
Yeah, so he does one of the songs on the soundtrack. But the thing is, although he never appears in any future Fast and Furious movies, he does have a song on Fast and Furious 6.
Oh, fair enough.
So he's not kicked out of the family. He does come back and do a song, but his character does not show up. So there you go. All right, so Kieran, what is your favorite line from this movie?
Favorite line? There's so many though. There's so many.
Yeah, there's some good ones.
I do look. Okay. It has to be Roman's reaction after Brian does the drive and stare with Eva Mendes. Is just like him pulling up
Let
and be
that
like,
from me.
he did the drive and stare, didn't he? Yeah, I taught him that. Like just that kind of that sets up their friendship and their relationship and him so much that I've always really liked it.
Ash, what's yours?
Damn, Suki. When you gonna pop my clutch?
I wrote the other side of that is when you have the right tools.
Yeah.
As soon as
That's
you get the
pretty
right
great.
set of tools, I was like, damn.
Also, like, don't even think about taking the convertible. It might loosen your moose. Or moose, yeah. No, that's cool. There's too much chroma for me anyways. And it was too much chrome.
Apparently Tyrese picked that himself. He wanted the chrome on that car.
Oh,
I watched a YouTube video about the guy who designed all the cars like a couple days ago.
is that on the? I was about to say, I think that's on the Blu-ray as well because I remember watching it when I was a
Well,
kid.
this wasn't just Too Fast, Too Furious. It was it's all
the whole
car-
thing. Okay,
it's
cool.
the whole thing. It's the guy that's done all the cars
Oh,
for the
nice.
whole thing. It was really
Nice.
interesting.
I'd be interested. Send me a link.
I'll hook you up. I'll find you.
Hook me up. I'll watch
I'll
that.
hook
Yeah,
you
I was
up,
about to
Brad.
say- I was about to say because there is a thing on the Blu-ray where they talk about it. I remember watching that, but that's only for this film, obviously. My favorite line is, I guess, technically part of a song, but it's my I think, which is just right at the start. All right. Fire 'em up. We go live in 5. It's time for ignition and straight up automobile pimping. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, fucking. I've skipped ahead to picking one of my favorite songs as well, so we'll jump straight into the mix. I'm chucking Actor Full Ludacris, of course, straight as one of my songs. That's, of course, one of the most famous Fast and Furious songs ever, obviously. And when I was in school, I would just, this song, my love for the Actor Full went from singing this in primary school all the way through high school. Like, I would constantly still just listen to Actor Full all the time. Like, and I still don't get bored of it. Like, as far as I'm concerned, classic song. And then my other pick is Rollin' on 20s by Lil Flip, which is only heard slightly in the background of one of the scenes, but it's one of my favorite songs on the soundtrack. And overall, I would like to say that Too Fast, Too Furious' soundtrack, I think, is probably my favorite Fast and Furious soundtrack. And I think that comes down to the fact that it's probably the one I'm listening to the most, and it's like sort of a nostalgia factor, because there's other people on here that I like remind me of my like grade 7, 8-ish type thing, like Chingy and stuff like that, who like had like several one-hit wonders with the songs right there and these sorts of things that I'm like, where the fuck did that dude go? But here he is on the soundtrack. So they're my 2 picks. Kieran, what are you picking for the songs?
One, I'm gonna do "Pump It Up" by Joe Budden. Pump it up. And I don't know what the actual song name's called. I thought it was called Too Fast, Too Furious, but it's the one where is that Nos? No, I can't remember.
I think there's one called Too Fast, Too
No,
Furious.
because there's one where they rap it and they're like, too fast,
That's
too
Actor Full.
furious.
That's Actor
Is it
Full.
Actor Full? It is Actor Full? Okay, I'll also pick Actor Full then.
Okay. You have fallen into picking Actor Full, indeed. Ash, what's your... what do you
I
got?
also had Actor Full, and then I put down On and On and On.
Which one's that? I don't even know.
I know, it's just on the soundtrack. Or listed on Wikipedia.
I see it here.
It is on the
Spotify soundtrack.
The Spotify playlist. It does not have On and On and On.
Well, maybe it's not on the Spotify playlist, so...
I thought that was on Fast and Furious. I thought that was on the last movie soundtrack.
Not according to IMDb.
Oh, I don't know about this.
We shall look into this and rectify any...
I mean, honestly, I wanted to pick, pick up the phone, but I feel bad about putting that on the list.
Why?
Because it's got R. Kelly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good job. That's the mix. One of those songs may or may not exist. We'll find out into the future sometime. Of course, you can find the link to the description for this playlist, the ultimate Fast Saga mix in the description below.
I put in a spare set of underwear.
Check out the awesome technology.
You're in trouble.
Go big or go home, right?
Welcome to the bonus segment for It's About Family Redux. Every couple episodes during this season, I will be talking about Fast and Furious Spy Races, which is a Netflix original animated series that is tied into the Fast and Furious universe. And for all purposes of this podcast, much like how I assume that Better Luck Tomorrow is canonical, we're going to assume that, yes, Fast and Furious Spy Races is definitely canonical and important to the overarching universe. So today, I'm going to set up what is the show, because I assume probably a lot of you listening probably haven't seen it, because it's a kid's show. So I'm going to sum up what it is, explain the audience for it, and then just give my overall thoughts on if it's something that A, as a kid's show is enjoyable, and B, as a Fast and Furious fan, could you get some enjoyment out of. And then in the next couple episodes, I'll be talking about the second series, the third series, and then the fourth series, and just giving you my overall thoughts on those as we go. And then I'm sure I'll sum it up at the end as like hey, was this whole thing enjoyable? Was this well worth putting the time and effort into watching? So we'll see. So it is. Each season is 8 episodes. Each episode is 23 minutes, so it's not exactly a big and time investment. For kids, I'm sure they could binge it. So the audience for this is definitely tween. So that I think the official description is like 9 to 12 or something like that. For if you're a tween, you're not quite a kid, but you're not quite a proper teenager at the same time. It's definitely around that audience. You have some, of course, involves the high intense car race scenes that the franchise is known for, but it's also got a lot of action because the series, it's called Fast and Furious Spy Races. It involves a lot of the spy espionage sort of stuff that the Fast and Furious franchise has been getting into over the last couple of films. But it's definitely not ultra violent or ultra scary or anything like that. There are a couple of points that's sort of laughable there, especially like the opening episode. It starts with someone who turns out to be the villain of the series. They're like robbing this yacht. It's out on a river or whatever, and these guards realize, and they just don't have guns. Like they pull out batons or something, and like my brain, the first reaction is, well, if this was not aimed at tweens, they would definitely be pulling out guns and shooting at the person because apparently they're guarding some secret, I don't know, drug kingpin's ultra expensive car that this person's stealing or something along those lines. But so the show then gets into it. The setup is you have a core cast of Tony Toretto. That's your main character. It's, of course, Dom's cousin. We don't really get an explanation of the lineage there, but it's Dominic Toretto's cousin. So Tony likes racing. He has the heart of a Toretto. Dom Vin Diesel does turn up in the first and I think it's last episodes. Basically just cameo appearances. He's the way he's animated and drawn or like digitally drawn or whatever for this show is quite honestly over the top and hilarious. Like he has the biggest shoulders and everything, and I just guarantee that was Vin being like, "Make me bigger," and so he's big. Tony Toretto. So yeah, he's got the heart of a racer. He's got the heart of a Toretto. He wants to do good. He wants to be the fastest racer, all that sort of stuff. And then the rest of the characters are you've got Margaret, Echo, Pearl, Cisco, Ronaldo, Layla, Gray, and then Frosty Benson. And they all sort of fit into like, it's not really like stereotypical, but like certain sorts of roles where like, for example, Frosty's the tech person and Layla's like the cool, calm, collected, just wants to get straight to the action. And Cisco wants to get straight into the, he's like the brute who's obsessed with like keeping cup holders in the cars for some reason, stuff like that. So they all sort of have their own quirks. All up, the core cast of young characters are enjoyable. They're a lot of fun for the most part. They're not like super deep, obviously, because it is a kids show, but they're not annoying or anything like that. They're sort of typical tween characters, and you can enjoy them for what they are. Plot wise, as I said, it is 8 episodes, and each one does connect into one another. So there is an overarching plot. Like each episode isn't just, hey, random race, this sort of thing, blah, 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 blah. It is, the setup is, I think it's in the first episode, like halfway through the first episode, that Tony and his crew, they all get basically put through a test by Dom and Miss Nowhere, which, of course, is another agent from the secret organization where Mr. Nowhere, played by Kurt Russell, works in the Fast and Furious films. And they recruit them because they need some young racers who won't get recognized because, of course, they ask why Dom won't do it. And he's like, oh, can't do it. I'm too popular. I'll get recognized like Borat kind of thing. So then they're like, you all need to do it. And, of course, the people, the crew they're trying to break into and go undercover as they're kids anyway. Like they don't really say the age of the kids, but I mean, they could be anywhere between like 12, 13 up to like 16. If I was to guess, like some of them definitely look older than others, but they're definitely like, I would say amongst that bracket. Like they're older than the audience. They're older than like the tween audience it's targeting, but it's not like they're, they're not adults, or they're not like, I would say maybe 15 at the oldest for some of the characters, for sure. So then the show basically has them break in. They make friends with these people. Lo and behold, there's betrayal at some point. Oh no, there's some races. There's like a test race. I think it's in the second or third episode from memory. Maybe it's the third one. They do like some test race that literally they're racing through what looks like the mine shafts from Fast and Furious, like the fourth Fast and Furious film. So that there's a lot more throwbacks than just that. Of course, there's some like random one-liners thrown out for people to go, ooh, like, oh, that's a reference, or like that sort of thing. But it's not too referential crazy, because you can tell that this show was designed as, hey, this is just a spin-off for the franchise that's being targeted as an enjoyable kids show for Netflix, where hopefully, because it has Fast and Furious in the name, that parents, I guess, who like the franchise will be more likely to watch it or encourage it or stick around and watch it too. So, you've got some of these references thrown out for people to grab onto and enjoy in this sort of thing. But it's definitely not like over the top referential, because it's targeting kids more so than the parents or adults or whoever's in the room actually watching it. And plot wise, it doesn't get too overcomplicated like this would if it was an actual adult thing as well. Even though at some stage it does, like by the end of the show, it is like about getting some secret keys to control like a mask that lets you, like it goes straight into that sci-fi ridiculous stuff that we've been dealing with the last couple of films. But ultimately, because it is a cartoon and because it is targeted at kids, that means that a lot of the more ridiculous stuff that the Fast and Furious franchise has been getting into just makes more sense because it's a kid show and a cartoon show. And even some of the more over the top car race sequences, and they look really good in this, like animation wise and action wise, the pacing of them and everything like that. Like even the music, it's, it doesn't have like Ludacris and stuff, but it's definitely got the hip hop or whatever inspired music and vibes and that sort of stuff. Like it is, when you have a car like fly over something and do a flip or whatever, like in animation and the way it looks here, it just makes a lot more sense and it's a lot more believable than some of the stuff is in the movies. I mean, they don't have someone move a missile on ice like they did in Fate of the Furious in this, but who knows, that could happen in the next couple of seasons as I'm yet to watch them. But if they did that in animation, I think it would be slightly more believable to me personally. So that is my overall summing up thoughts for both like what this show is and the first series. I would say based on this, it's like, hey, if you have a tween, if you have a kid that's in that audience, or someone and they ask you if this would be a good watch, I would say yes. Like it's highly enjoyable. It's definitely for that, as I said, tween audience, 9 to 12 or whatever it is. That's the targeted audience. It's got some fun characters, a lot of enjoyable stuff. You get to enjoy the like illegal street racing action sort of stuff without it being like overly encouraged as like a cool thing you should definitely do. It's like, just, I don't know, in this world, it's not like they ever have cops chasing them or anything, because I think that's done on purpose. Like there's never any police chasing anyone because you want to be like, well, that's bad, and you should, I don't know. Like you can tell there's a lot of purposeful choices done. If you're a Fast and Furious fan, are you going to get a lot out of this? Not really. I mean, if you're a hardcore fan and you want to like tick all the boxes, like I guess I'm doing, then sure. It is. I'm enjoying it. Like I'm enjoying it as it's only 8 episodes. It never overstayed its welcome. There's no filler episodes. The characters are fun enough. I'm enjoying it as it is. But it's not like you need to watch this. There's definitely nothing so far that I'm going to say is a must watch for Fast and Furious fans or fans of the universe as a whole or whatever. So that's it. So look forward to more of my thoughts on Fast and Furious spy races in the next couple episodes throughout the continuation of It's About Family Season 1 Redux. We'll talk about it some more in the future. Looks like we're all out of NOS for this week. You can follow all of us on Twitter by heading to explosionnetwork.com/Twitter. Next week, we will be discussing Fast and Furious, the 4th one. Not the Fast and Furious. We've already done that. Instead, we're talking about...
But what about Tokyo Drift?
with Furious. In the show, in a podcast about Fast and Furious that started with Better Luck Tomorrow, you better hold on your horses when we skip Tokyo Drift and put it we're chronologically. Remember, everyone? That's why we started with Better Luck Tomorrow. We're going chronologically. So Tokyo Drift will show up in about
2
4
weeks.
episodes.
No, it's
no
only
more than
2.
that.
Is
More
it?
than that.
I thought it was after 6.
No, yeah. So next week is Fast and Furious. The week after that's Fast 5. The week after that's
okay,
Fast 6. So it's 4 episodes away.
Wow. You know what, guys? I've just proved to everybody listening that Dylan is organized for this podcast. Well done, Dylan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, next week, Fast and Furious, the 4th one, as well as Los Bandoleros.
Isn't it Bandoleros?
Bandoleros.
It's Bandoleros, you...
Bandoleros. Los Bandoleros. The
Kick out the
Prelude
family.
short film that Vin Diesel directed. We'll be talking about that as well. That takes place just before Fast and Furious. So make sure you watch that as well so we can talk about both those things. And until next episode, #Justice is coming.
Is it though?